Welcome again. Today what we're going to do is that we're going to draw koi fish using our Arteza watercolor pad, cold press paper, and these Arteza woodless watercolor pencils. They're actually super nice. If you want to use them either as pencils or if you just want to create a pool of something and just use them as your palette. Also, we're using these brushes, which are very, very nice because they have this button right here and you can control your water flow directly by pressing it. It comes in very handy. And let's put that over there. Cool. So, oops. I'm gonna work horizontally. Sorry for the noise. Okay, so one of the first things we're gonna do is just basically decide how we want our fish to be laid out, because it's super easy drawing these, as you will find. Basically, you can decide this by creating a curve like this, because they do tend to follow the flow of water. They're very fluid looking. So these curves that you can make, don't make them overly complicated, but there. We're gonna make 3 of them. And this is the 3 positions where I decided I wanted mine. So all that you're gonna do is basically create a very weird worm and it's going to taper out as you reach the tail. That's pretty much a fish. You will be surprised at how easy these are to make. And then you create your other very strangely shaped worm. It's gonna be a little bit wider here and it's gonna taper out because it's gonna be the mouth. And this is gonna be the tail. And we do the same thing here. And we can make this one going away. Actually, no, let's pretend there's like food here and they wanna sort of crowd around it. Remember not to make these curves too, don't make them overly forced. They should be very fluid shapes because these are fish and they're in the water and they're very fluid. So if you make something super complicated or whatever, then there's going to look like there's a lot of stress on the fish. So I would personally recommend just creating these little really soft curves. So let's work with this one. We're gonna flatten out the front a little bit to create a mouth, and then it tapers out like this. Here, it's just, we're gonna decide this is where the gills are gonna go. And it goes forward, it turns into like a V sort of situation right there. And then right here, you're gonna have the eyes. There. Actually, the head is going to remind us a little bit of a dog because it's going to have almost the brow right here and the eye is going to come out. And I don't know, it's a weird crossbred between a dragon and a fish. They have a little bit more head structure than most fish do. So that's gonna be basically our head. This right here is our spinal cord, and this is where we're gonna decide that, this is where we're gonna center ourselves off of. So later on, you're gonna see how that comes in handy. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue the body a little bit. We're gonna create a little nub here. It's gonna be very small. You don't wanna make huge because the fish are not super close to you, and you just wanna create a very tiny knob, and you wanna make them next to each other. It doesn't make sense to put one up here, another one down here, because these are gonna be the nubs for the fins, and they tend to be very symmetrical. So I'm gonna create another set of nubs, and these ones are gonna be even tinier back here. And now you have a finless fish that would drown if it were to be released in water. So you're gonna give it fins. Basically, they're gonna taper out like that. Again, very fluid movements. Remember to keep your lines as free-forming as possible, because it's going to reflect in the movement of your drawing. It's going to reflect in a lot of things. So you want to keep your lines very free-flowing there. Whoop, there we go. And you don't want it to connect to here. You want it to end before. So that right there doesn't make any sense. And neither does this one. We're not gonna put a lot of emphasis in these. But it's basically these little feathery things. Later on we will do our best to treat them kindly. It's gonna be a little bit trickier to watercolor these. That's pretty much the hardest thing that you will do in this whole drawing, painting process, is just watercoloring the fins, because you wanna keep them light as opposed to the things around them. And that's all. If you put masking fluid on it, that's it. You're set. This is going to be super simple. And then these ones, you wanna do the same 3 or 4 lines like that too. Gives you an idea of where the fins are gonna go. And now the dorsal fin you're gonna put back here. And it's going to be on this thing that we decided was going to be the spinal cord. That's why I said it was gonna come in important later on. And now here we have to do the tail, because then it wouldn't have any sort of direction if it didn't have a tail. And there. We can create little folds in it like this to give it a little bit more movement, or if you want to make it a little bit more complicated looking. You want the tail to attach almost entirely to the fish, because it is attached it's not attached as daintily as some of the fins. It's attached very, very solidly, very completely to the fish. So once we erase those lines, it's gonna come out something like that. Cool. So now we can erase our guidelines on this fish. Cool. There. I actually want to keep this line here a little. Now we're gonna work on this one. And it's the same process. You can create dorsal fin first if you want. But again, this is super, super simple. Create the eyes. You can try different techniques for drawing the fins. They don't have to look perfect. Actually, my bad. Okay, and I want to incline this one this way. See how important this line is? Because it was inclined in this direction, it curved down this way, I was forced to make the fish face that way or be tilted, like instead of being like this, being like this. So, by changing it slightly, I've centered the fish so it's not like this anymore, it's like this again. It's super important. It's the most important thing on this drawing pretty much is that line. It defines, it's because it's going to give you a reference for putting everything else in place. We put the little eyes then. And there's our tail. Dorsal fin, fins, and more fins. Okay, there we go, fantastic. So now we're ready to color. Cool. Okay, and this is it. This has been drying with koi fish. If you like this video and you find it useful, please remember to like it and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later with another video.